Hi guys, welcome back. So you'll see from the slightly different position of things, I've had a bit of a reshuffle around in the workshop here. I do have a very small workshop. I haven't really done too much of a walk around. If anyone would be interested, then please by all means let me know. But the general gist of it is every inch is used. All of the ceiling, all of the area under the bench. It's all very much packed out with stuff, and that's just the wall that you can see. So finding a home for the lathe hasn't been easy, but this seems to be a decent enough little spot for it. Now the last mission that I have with this lathe is to build it a motor mount. The original motor mounts, the motor would have been flat on the table, and then there'd have been a double pulley arrangement, so a pulley from the motor driving this pulley onto the back end of the lathe itself. But what I'm going to do, I think, is a single piece which holds the motor under gravity but allows it to slide left and right, because I do at the minute only have one pulley on that lathe. I am waiting delivery of a triple speed pulley, but even so I think to fit ideally onto those drive pulleys there, it's going to be necessary for it to slide to the left and right. So the lathe itself, positioned under here, means that the belt has to be at the very least horizontal, ideally slightly higher, and that is one of the reasons, I guess, why the original motor mounts had a pulley nice and high up with the drive motor flat on the bench behind it. What I'm planning to do here is to actually make the motor, as I mentioned already, a mount that holds it under gravity, so sort of pivoting forwards and backwards with it's quite a heavy motor, but the weight of the motor pulling against the belt to apply tension to it. So it's going to be nice and easy to do, but I do need to consider it sliding from side to side, which is going to be a tricky bit. Okay, so here we are at the other end of the bench, all of about 6 feet away. So the plan, nice and simple, is I'm going to take two of these metal brackets, which can be very simply screwed down onto the work surface behind the lathe. Of course, the lathe itself is going to be bolted down using the bolts that we fabricated all that time ago. I'm going to use a step drill to bring the top one of these holes to exactly 12 mil. I'm then going to build a frame for the actual motor itself. Now it's going to be very similar in construction to this one that I made for a much earlier iteration of the extractor, which I used really more for soldering. But yeah, very similar construction to that. It'll just be longer and thinner. Through the end of the metal frame itself, I'm going to mount some of this 12 mil pipe. The 12 mil pipe itself, I'm going to ream the frame so that it's exactly 12 mil, so it slides along the outside of this, and with that drilled into there, I'm just going to weld this bar in place. So super quick and easy. I'm going rather more for function than form. It will be hidden pretty much by the lathe anyway. Of course, I'll spray this to be the same grey as the lathe. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking functional rather than pretty this time. So that's it. I'm just going to crack on with that. It's going to be a very quick and easy build, but as I say, definitely function over form. Simply put, we're going to have a metal bar, a frame sitting on this, and the motor resting on that, with the weight of the motor tensioning the belt. That's it. Let's crack on. Okay, so metal rod, that'll attach through here. Need to make those holes bigger. So the next piece, stepper drill. Now what I've tried to do with the workshop here is keep everything as flexible as it can be, so this space can also be used for the bandsaw, can also be used for the metal shear, all sorts of other bits and bobs. They just have their own bases that clamp onto the top. So nothing particularly complicated. You may recognise this little vise here. This is one I restored in a much earlier video, a long time ago now. Okay, let's get organised. This has just got butterfly nuts underneath here to adjust the position correctly. Very important when you're working with this kind of thing that you have it held absolutely firm. The last thing you want to do is have it flapping around all over the place. Very important, especially if you're cutting metal. So if you're getting even halfway serious about this kind of thing, don't be messing around with cordless drills and so on. Definitely worth investing in something a little bit more heavy duty. They are lovely and smooth when they're working clamps down onto a solid surface, as you'll see in a sec. So these stepper drills are absolutely fantastic. You just don't want to go too fast with them, and you definitely don't want to try using them without cutting and tapping fluid, because they're made of high-speed steel, so they'll put up with some abuse, but they'll blunt pretty quickly if you use them either too fast or without cutting oil. So looking at the steps here, I need to go to the 5th one, so that's 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, so it's the 5th step I'm after. So I only need to go in 1. So I'm going to just put a spot of oil actually on the drill itself. Put the goggles on. Take safety seriously, guys. Never shortcut. Can't imagine anything more frustrating than sitting there blind for the rest of your life, thinking of all the projects that you could build if you hadn't cut that corner. There's a lot of drama there. And with a bit of persuasion, in fact this might not even need welding in, with a bit of persuasion just with a lump hammer, that'll probably fit straight through. Let's give that a crack. I use a plastic one, I don't want to damage the other end. If I damage the other end, all of a sudden I'm going to have to start straightening it out before it will fit through the equivalent hole. Okay, so that is pretty close to perfect. I am not even going to bother needing to get the welder out for this, which is great news. That is properly solid actually. More than good enough. I was just worried about vibration, but I am not going to have to worry, which means that I can actually spray these grey without having to mask this off, which is very helpful as well. So let's get the other one done here. Exactly the same as before. This one for some reason seems to be drilled very slightly different. I guess there isn't such tight manufacturing tolerances. Never mind, still going to work. Spot more oil on the drill itself. Don't need a lot. Goggles still on from before. in case you're wondering, I have a bin directly below me here. I'm just tipping all of the swarf straight into. Recommend that you do the same. Keep your workshop tidy. Okay, will this one be as obliging? Yes, it will. Happy days. So that is the bar on which the frame is going to rest. So obviously I want the holes cut through the frame itself to be very, very straight and to sit nicely on that. So if I oil this, it won't bring itself sideways under vibration. Of course, the tension from the belt is always going to be keeping it as close to it to straight as it can be, to perpendicular. But no, that is perfect. Next job then, I guess, is the frame. Now my plan is to start with 18-inch long sections. The motor itself is going to provide the cross bracing necessary, so I don't need to worry about welding cross pieces on like this. That won't be necessary, as it's a solid steel plate that the motor is attached onto. Let me just grab that over. God, this is heavy. So I'll be bolting a bar down here, a bar down here, through from the back, and that will allow us a little bit of movement up and down. And of course, if I start at 18 inches, I can always bring the hole further back up if necessary. Okay, so in the interests of keeping this super simple, I'm going to drill and use bolts and so on wherever possible, rather than jumping straight for the MIG welding gear, because I appreciate not everyone has that stuff. Most people, I think, could probably just about get their hands on a stepper drill, so no issues with that. Could use the blue pen for this, but it's not that critical, so I'm just going to use the set square here on both simultaneously. Put a mark. And this is 1 inch bar, so marking a ½ inch in, and just to check that. Yep, perfect. Spot on. Now I'm going to be doing these in a drill press, so I don't have to worry about them being square on. That'll be perfect. But if you were doing this with a hand drill, cordless for instance, apart from anything, you need to remember to take it nice and slow, because if you go too fast cutting metal, all it's going to do is blunt your drill bits. I'm going to start these off and then cut them with the step saw, just because it's just easier than having the end of drill bits wobbling around. So I'm going to punch these to start them off, just using a automatic centre pop. A couple of whaps. Go from both sides is where I was rambling on towards there, by the way. If you are doing this with a cordless, just to make sure that both holes are in exactly the right position, turn it over and mark on the other side, and then drill them, rather than trying to drill all the way straight through in one pass. Now with pedestal drills, if you are cutting a piece of metal, I meant to mention this the other day actually, I'm doing a fabrication video at the moment of a little steam turbine. Very important to remember that if you're cutting something like this, piece of brass for instance, if the drill jams into the metal and pulls it out and it's not stopped against something, that is going to whip around, and effectively that's like a cutting edge. It's like, it'd be like sticking your fingers into a lawnmower. So it's absolutely critical, if you are drilling holes on pieces like this, that you remember it's going to spin clockwise and you butt them up against the leg on the drill, because that way it can't suddenly whip round. If you do it that way round, that's going to have maximum space to come around and cut your fingers off. Horrific injuries can come from that, so be careful. Always remember, safety first. There is rarely such a thing as a minor accident with a power tool. Anyway, safety notice aside, let's get this clamped in. I'm going to clamp it into the top here so that I can drill straight through without having to worry about the drill press itself getting drilled. Sorry, whacking you there. So just line this up. Now, because I want to go through the other side here as well, I'm just going to put a little drizzle of oil through there, so that's sitting in a little puddle waiting for the drill bit when it finally gets there. I'm just looking onto the end of it here to make sure it's sitting absolutely square in the drill press, and on we go. That's it, straight through. Having the right tools really does make these jobs very, very easy, almost cheating. Remember from before, we're going down to the 5th step here. So the steps on this go 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So 4, 6, 8, 10, I need the 5th step. Now I just want to check, before I do this with a drill bit instead, that the 5th step isn't going to suddenly poke out through the other side. That wouldn't usually be a problem because we've got a hole on the other side anyway, but I want to just make sure that there is sufficient space here, because you can get slightly stubbier versions of these. I have one in the tool chest, but that's okay, it's not going to come out the other side anyway. So I'm going to have to drop the bed down a little. Not that much. That'll do. I'm going to have to adjust this now. Just a little bit of fiddling around, but definitely worth it. Because as before, having the right tools makes these jobs super easy. We're not too fast with this as well. So 5th step is the target. Just to make this a bit easier for myself, I'm going to put a spot of white on that, just so I know when I've got there. So the holes that I've just drilled there come close to being the right size, but they're not quite. I could hit that in there and it would fit beautifully, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ream those holes through the frame pieces using a fluted reamer. So we'll just change tools over here. As luck would have it, 12mm is the biggest reamer that I actually have. So this should be quite straightforward. The chuck goes up to 13. What we've got now is 4, hopefully totally perpendicular holes that we should be able to just slide straight onto this bar. Come on. Just need to do that last one. Bit of a burr in that one. So the next mission then is going to be to drill the other ends to receive those holes, and it's going to be exactly the same procedure, so I'll do this off camera, and we'll bolt them through using 8mm bolts with locking washers. Straightforward enough. There you go. So all coming together. That is pretty much what I had in mind at this end. And there, mounted onto the motor. So the lathe would be on this side and it will flip over. And then some stops to figure out to stop it smashing through the window. Could always put a piece of chipboard or hardboard OSB, something like that, behind it as well, just for peace of mind. But I'm straight. So next piece then, more drill holes and some bolts, although this time only 8mm. Well, as you can see, I went for the quick and dirty option of a piece of 1-inch OSB just to protect the window for now, but that is absolutely what I had in mind. Let's see how that works with the lathe. God, this thing's heavy. Okay, so that's the lathe just rested in front of it. It's pretty solid, but I still need to pin that down through the bench underneath using the coach bolts we fabricated all that time ago. I'm going to say that's probably, what's this, 12? So that would be episode 4 or 5, somewhere around there, where I fabricated the coach bolts. But let's see how close we are in terms of this. This is exactly what I was wanting, basically. It's not going to rock forward. It clears the lathe completely. Which is just what I was after, and there should be tension that doesn't drag the belt against the back of the mount. This piece here comes up very close. Now the original ones had a central pulley unit. The motor from underneath turned a big pulley, and then that turned the cone of other sizes to control this. If I can ever get hold of one of those, then of course I will, but for now I think that is pretty solid. Let's see how that goes. Now I just need to anchor the lathe down onto the bed of the bench, of course. So I'll do that now. That's just going to involve drilling through, marking, drilling, and positioning it. So nothing particularly complicated there. And then we can switch this thing on and see what happens. So that's the holes drilled. I'm just going to take one of these bolts here and size it up now. I need about 2 inches above, not exact, but approximately 2 inches above. So I'm going to mark that with a bit of paint pen. Okay, so the nut's on. Okay, so should be able to just spin this off now. And I'll just very quickly check, make sure there's no burrs, swarf, anything like that on the end, because this is going to, of course, go into the bed of the lathe. This actually screws directly into the feet. I'm just going to put these in finger tight for now. If I'd thought about this, I probably should have taken all of the bits off it. Now, I've marked this very carefully. It's exactly 3/4 of an inch in to the centre of the hole. So put a centre line on the bench, and then measured the distance in. So now I know exactly where the hole is. I just have to line up the mark on the foot there, both ends. And they should just slot straight in. Because this is chipboard base, I'm going to put some washers on this as well. So there it is, guys, the end of what has been quite a long road, but absolutely worth doing, and I am genuinely looking forward to using this little beastie. So yeah, a most enjoyable restoration. Thank you very much for watching. It's been great having you along, and if this is your kind of thing, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. That'll let YouTube know I'm doing a half decent job, and if they take it on themselves to recommend my stuff to more people, well then who knows what might come up. I have a restoration of a milling machine in mind. I'm going to need to find somewhere to put that if I can, but right now some other little projects ongoing, including scratch build of a high pressure, high volume steam turbine, live steam, for a miniature turbine I've had for a while. That one's very nearly finished. That's coming up in the near future. A few other bits and bobs, but a lot more fabrication over the winter months, because frankly, lying under a car on the street when it's snowing or sleet around you is not really high on my list of things to do. So more fabrication coming up. If there's anything you'd like to see in particular, anything that you'd like me to cover, any builds you'd be interested in, or particularly any tools that you would certainly be interested in the restoration of, I'm always open to suggestions. I'll certainly have a look around. As I say, I've got a milling machine in mind, but they're not quite so easy to come by, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, there you go. No more waffle from me. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.